Hi everyone, welcome to GameGorgon. My name is Krug, and I'm Indigo. And today I learned to teleport. Wow, that's so cool.
You might have like 3 or 4 of those.
No, I'm gonna have tons.
Hi everyone, welcome to GameGorgon. My name's Indigo.
And I'm Krug.
And today we're going to be talking about Marvel Heroic Role-Playing
Game. I'm just gonna call it the Marvel RPG. You probably haven't heard of the Marvel RPG because it released in 2012. In 2013, the company that released it stopped supporting it. The individual who owned the publishing company that released it since retired from making RPGs. So there aren't any PDF copies available for you to buy. There are still physical copies available on Amazon, either used or third-party sellers that have new ones. I'm not vouching for any of those things. I'm just saying they exist. They're about 30 bucks. The reason that we're going over it today is because we're going to be doing a live stream using this system.
Oh my god, there is a small Bunions thing here.
Okay, so I'm taking William's joke and Winter's joke now.
We start around 6:30 PST. We go until we're done going. We're making this video as a reference guide for people that are watching so that they can have some sort of reference material for the like mechanics of the game, because it is sort of a complicated game. Yeah.
The word doesn't make sense. Okay.
Yeah.
Fucking dumb.
Why
don't you just keep going?
Sure. It's so complicated. And 2, we're not gonna take the time to explain it during the live stream because it would take literally 2 sessions.
It's nice to be able to just play the game and allow you guys to just perform and play the game.
Yeah, in like a stress-free.
Yeah, and without having
to remember and recite.
Yep. Just say, hey, if you have any more questions, watch this video. And that's what this is for.
Yeah. That having been said, this is the first time we're doing something like this before actually having played the RPG in question. So we just thought we'd let you know that. If you have any feedback or anything like that, leave it in the comments. We love feedback. Thanks.
I'm gonna guess that there's probably not a lot of people that's played this since
True.
It ended after a year of being made.
Yep, a long time ago.
But you guys are bringing it back.
We are. We're bringing Fetch back.
Stop trying to make fetch happen.
So what do you need to play?
Wow, that was just so slick. You need dice. You need all of the normal dice, D4, D6, D10, D12, except for the D20. You don't need the D20. It doesn't do anything. And you need a lot of them because this game revolves around a dice pool, which is just like throwing dice into a pile and rolling them. We'll get to that in a bit. Bear with me. You also need a character sheet for all the characters. Those come in the form of something called a data file. Data file and character sheet are exchangeable words. I'm going to go back and forth between them, sorry. Lastly, you need the 2 things that every good RPG needs, a pencil and a paper, not a pen. Put the fucking pen down. Do you hear me?
My pen erases.
No.
Now let's go over some terminology in the game. The GM is going to be called the Watcher.
The next term that will be on your test on Wednesday is step up and step down. This is referencing when you're increasing the total value of a dice by 1 or decreasing it by 1. A D6 to a D8 is a step up, a D8 to a D6 is a step down.
Next is Dice Pool, which is a collection of dice in which you're going to be rolling for something.
Yes. Now when you make a roll, you're actually gonna get 2 results. The first is the roll total. That's gonna determine whether or not you succeed based on stuff we'll go over later.
The other result is your effect die, which you will determine how successful you are if you succeed.
Effect dice don't get rolled. When I choose a D6 as my effect dice, I'm not rolling a D6, I'm literally doing a D6 to you. Not a rolled, I don't roll the D6. You literally took a D6 of damage.
All right.
It's hard to explain because the vernacular is that a D6 of damage means you roll a D6.
Yeah.
And then you take that much damage. But that's not what's happening. The value is 1d6.
Okay.
That is it.
You're using a term that is used as a variable for as a solid number.
Yes.
Okay. I'm not ready.
Okay. Yeah, this is the second result.
But doesn't... Okay, see, the way I read this was, wow, this is confusing and pointless.
I told you. The next term you should know is plot points. Plot points are a resource that every character in the game has that you use to do so many things. It's actually an overwhelming number of things. There's too many of them. I can't remember all of them ever. If I were to read any of them to you, I would be reading them. I wouldn't be able to say them off the top of my head. There's a lot. of things that you could do.
Now, are these very similar to Fate points from Fate Core, where
Yeah.
it's like it's got a plethora of things that you, as a player, get
I
to
think
make
Fate
up?
Core has like 4 or 5 things. This has like 9 things that you could do
Wow.
with it. And they're just like very
Minute differences from each
from each
other? Okay.
other. Some of them are drastically different from one
Sure.
another, but then like there's like clumps of them that
Yeah, I
feel
mean,
very
the,
samey.
the difference between 1 and 2 is only 1, but the difference between 1 and 3
Yeah.
is 2.
Next up is an asset. An asset is basically reserving an effect dice, which we talked about earlier, for use later. There are 2 ways you can save something as an asset. You can either give it to one of your allies so that that specific ally can use it for anything, or you could give it to a specific enemy so that any ally can use it when attacking that specific enemy. So it's the difference between like, I'm handing you a sword that you didn't have before,
Yeah.
which gives you the effect die, or I am tripping the opponent. Anybody can get a bonus against the opponent, or the person with the sword can get a bonus by using the sword against anything.
Okay.
If everybody in the group is having a hard time accomplishing something that has to be accomplished, just start piling assets into it. The last 2 words we're going to go over are stress and trauma.
The things that I have when I'm reading these.
The things that I have when I'm making these. This is basically the way you take damage. We're going to talk about stress first.
Okay.
It comes in 3 flavors. There's mental stress, emotional stress, and physical stress. Each of them are tracked separately for every character. The way that you take a stress is that somebody uses an effect die to give you stress. Every character has the same amount of those 3 types of stress that they can endure before they are incapacitated,
Okay.
which is referred to as being stressed out. For each of those categories of stress, you have a D6, a D8, a D10, a D12 that you can absorb
Okay.
in stress. So if I take a D8 of stress and I had no stress before, my stress level is now at D8 for whatever category they were attacking me
Okay.
with. If I have a D8 of stress and I take a D6 of stress, my stress goes up by 1 level.
So up a step.
Up a step, exactly. If I have a D8 of stress and I take a D12 of stress, my stress becomes a D12.
So if it's below, it goes up a step.
Exactly.
But if it's above, it goes to that step. So if you were at
Exactly.
a D6 and you took a D12,
Yep.
it would skip 8 and go 8 and 10 and go up to 12. Okay.
Yeah. And then the way you get stressed out is you're at a D12 of stress and you take any stress. Now, stress isn't only hinderful. Is that a f***ing word?
Not
Stress
only is-
doesn't only hinder you. There we go. Now, stress doesn't only hinder you when you get to a D12.
Okay.
If I'm trying to do something to you and you have stress, and it's justifiable that the kind of stress that you have would prevent you from overtaking me or
Okay,
preventing me from
okay.
doing what I'm trying to do, I can take your stress dice and put it in my pool and add it to the dice that I'm rolling.
So bear with me.
Bearing.
You have physical stress,
Yes.
and I'm trying to tackle you.
Yes.
Right? Theoretically,
Yes.
you having a physical pain or physical,
Yep.
sprained ankles,
Yeah.
say, is going to make it harder for you to defend against me tackling you.
Exactly.
So I would be able to pull that D6
Yep.
and use it in my dice pool, right?
Correct.
And roll it.
Yes.
So maybe that's why it's a D6 versus a flat number, because
Yeah.
it is something that the
Yeah,
enemy
there's
can
definitely a reason for it. It's just difficult to explain the
use.
dice thing.
Without going to the next
Yeah.
step to then go backwards.
Yep. No, it's something
Because
you
that
pick.
would make sense.
Yeah, this is not what you expect.
Okay. All right.
I told you.
I'm sorry. I know. I'm already f***ing the game.
No, I'm with you. I'm 100% with you. Next is trauma. You get trauma when you take more damage after you've been stressed out. Trauma is more persistent than stress.
Okay.
So you can't recover from a trauma automatically in between 2 encounters. You can't like rest in other RPGs. But it's a transition scene, that's what it's called.
Okay. This is going via like movie/comic kind
Yeah,
of terminology.
exactly.
Okay.
Whenever you're in between encounters, your traumas go back 1 step. So if you had like sprained ankle D8, that's going to go down to a D6 automatically. And then using other characters' abilities or making it like checks by yourself, you can have it recover more, but you never automatically recover from trauma. You have to put effort into it
Okay.
or a lot of time.
Okay.
Okay, so those are the building blocks that we need to work from. Those are the concepts that I think are the most wildly different from other RPGs that we talked about in this channel so
Okay.
far. Now we're gonna talk about the character sheet, and that's gonna inform us as to like how do we build the dice pool and stuff like that. First thing we're gonna look at are affiliations. This is the first dice that you're going to pick when you're building your dice pool. In the role that you are currently looking at, who's helping you? Are you by yourself? Are you with your team? Or are you with just a buddy? So each character has one of 3 dice assigned to those 3 affiliations.
Okay.
It's either a D6, a D10, or a D8. I don't know why I said that. It's either a D10, a D8, or a D6. It's not really anything creative or fun. It's just, are you with a person?
Yeah.
Are you with more than one person?
Yep.
There's your answer.
That's just a flat out number, and you will always be rolling one of them. There's never a situation where you're not rolling that.
I cannot think of one. Okay. Next are distinctions.
Okay.
Distinctions I think are pretty fun. If you watched our Fate Core video, you know about aspects, descriptive phrases for your character, multifaceted in that they are in some contexts good and in some contexts bad. That is basically what a distinction is. You pick 3 distinctions for your character. For example, I'm playing Nightcrawler in our upcoming session, and my distinctions are pious, circus freak, and swashbuckler. The next thing you do when you're building your dice pool after you pick your affiliation is use a distinction. Pick one of the 3 phrases that you have that describes your character that fits the situation you're in, and decide whether it's going to help you or hurt you. Now, if you choose to let it help you, you add a D8 to your pool. If you choose to have your distinction hinder you, you add a D4 to your pool, and you gain a plot point. Now remember, plot point did that huge list of stuff. So you're basically making the role more difficult for yourself in exchange for getting a plot point. If you can't find something that makes sense, you shouldn't add the dice. But I did not see that written anywhere. I saw that you pick these dice, and then there are some optional dice later. Yeah. I think if you can't reasonably justify, and that's the key, because you could justify anything. If you can't reasonably justify something, you shouldn't take the dice. But that might break stuff later on. So next we're talking about power sets. Power sets are that. Next, power sets represent either the supernatural, superhuman abilities that your character has, like teleportation for Nightcrawler, for example, or just stuff that your character's good at. For example, Nightcrawler has sword as one of his power sets.
Okay.
So there are 3 aspects to a power set. The first is like the dice pool part. You're basically getting descriptors of what your character is good at, or what your character can do. It doesn't have to be a talent. It can also be something like a supernatural power. For example, Nightcrawler has a power set called Mutation that has a teleport, shadow blending, and a prehensile tail. Each of those terms is associated with a dice. When you're building your dice pool, you get to select one of those dice from each of your power sets. Nightcrawler has 2 power sets total.
And you can't have multiple. You can't find multiples that will work or help you.
You have to pick one.
You have to pick one. Okay.
Yeah. Unless one of your abilities says otherwise.
Oh, okay.
There are abilities that can manipulate the way that you manipulate your dice pool, but those are just written and you just have to read them.
Sure.
Hey, remember how I said power sets have an ability that you can trigger to change the way things work or give you a buff?
No.
Okay, I said that.
Yes.
Those are called special effects. For example, Nightcrawler has Hold On Tight, which allows him to teleport himself and another character at the cost of physical stress. They don't always cost stress. Sometimes they cost plot points. Sometimes they don't cost anything.
Oh, okay.
And they just require you to be in a situation. They're activatable, and they sometimes, usually, have some sort of drawback or difficulty associated with them. The last part of a power set is a limit. A limit is something that the watcher can use against your character to make your life harder. I actually really like Nightcrawler's. He can become exhausted, which shuts down the power set, meaning you can't use any of it. It just doesn't exist for your character until you spend a plot point to restore it during a transition scene. Last but not least, we have specialties.
Okay.
These represent like training that your character has undergone, not something that they have or something that they were born with, like a special ability or something like that. This is like, I did this for a long time and I'm good at it. And they also, again, add dice.
Okay.
And they are separate from your power set, so you pick one from each power set, and you also pick a specialty dice. For example, Nightcrawler has Combat Master D10, Acrobatic Master D10, and Covert Expert D8. Please put your books away and take out a piece of paper. We're gonna do our first pop quiz. We're gonna talk about a turn.
Okay.
The turn mechanic is a little bit interesting.
By interesting, do you mean legitimately you think this is an interesting way of going about it? Or are you using the term interesting as in like overly complicated, not necessarily necessary?
Legit interesting.
Oh, all right.
So the watcher is going to pick any player to go first. I don't think it's entirely random. I think it's like because of the fact that you had just fallen out of the ceiling to like get the drop on the guy. If you have a good GM.
All right.
Your results may vary.
Who goes next?
The person who went first then takes their action, right? Does the thing they want to do, and then they pick who goes next. It's either another player or
an enemy.
The watcher. The watcher has to spend some of the watcher's resource, which they have. We're not getting into the watcher's stuff here. Look, the watcher has a resource that they use to manipulate the game. they have to spend some of that if they want to interrupt the player's turn order. The turns keep going until everybody's had a chance to go. The same person can't go twice until everybody's gone once. And then the person who went last has the option to either pick someone else to go or to choose to go first for the next round. I think that's a really interesting way of doing the stuff.
Yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of putting restrictions on the GM / the watcher.
Yeah.
Most GM's goals are, or should be, their goal should be to create a fun, exciting story for both the players and themselves, and not necessarily a competitive game. And by giving the GM a pool of points or a pool of system, it's making it more of a competitive situation of like, oh, well, I'm going to win this. But at the same time, the GM also has control over the entire world. We trust the GM to be honest, but we also don't trust them to be honest, so they have to use pools of points. And I'm going to be GMing one that has that system. I've basically said I'm not using it.
Sure.
Like flat out, like I'm not using this system.
I see where you're coming from. I say that to you so much in these shows. There's one episode where I said it like 4 times. And I was like, what are you saying, Krug? Until we play, I'm not going to make a final judgment, but the way I'm thinking of it now is that it feels better for a player when the GM, because of the way that they are handling the situation, has to expend something to deal with them, right?
What? No.
It's not just, I'm exerting my omnipotence. It's, I have made this conscious decision to prevent you from doing what you're doing.
No.
And that clearly, as a player, sends a signal, this is the right choice. I am forcing him to invest into preventing me from doing the thing that I'm doing. That comes with the caveat, I have never played an adversarial style RPG where the GM is actively working against the players using mechanics. So I don't know, we'll see after the session is over. If you're a GM and seeing the players smile or laugh or like think really hard about how to solve one of your problems doesn't give you the most joy ever, you're probably not doing it right.
Yeah.
That aside, that's how that mechanic works. One last thing about turns, you can roll against any other character's roll to defend against it for one of your allies if it makes sense. There's no restriction to the number of times you can do it as long as you can justify having done it. Okay, so when you actually want to roll, to do a thing, you are going to do the following. You're going to add 1 die for your affiliation. You're going to choose one of your distinctions and decide whether it's going to benefit you or hinder you. You're going to add 1 die for each of your power sets. You're going to add 1 die from your specialty. Optionally, you can also add a die from one of your stunts, from a resource, from an opponent's stress, or by spending a plot point. You're gonna put them in your hands and roll them. 2 of them are going to be added together. The values that you rolled are going to be added together.
So theoretically, the 2 highest ones.
Yes, and that's going to basically be whether or not you succeed. That's the number you're going to compare to the opposition in order to decide if you succeeded or not. The next one is going to be a dice that you pick that's going to be how well did you succeed if you succeeded. That's going to be the effect die, and the value of that dice doesn't matter.
Yeah.
The dice itself represents how well you did. A D6 is stronger than a D8. It doesn't matter if when you rolled them, the D6 rolled a 6 and the D8 rolled a 1. It's just the value of the dice.
It's going against their what?
They're actively opposing you.
Okay, so they're going to be doing the exact same thing in correlation to how they're defending.
Correct.
They have this, and that goes for the player as well.
Correct.
So the GM says, okay, Nightcrawler, I'm going to be using 2 guys against you to do X, Y, and Z.
Yep.
And so it's a buddy dice, it's whatever, blah, 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 and then they roll and they do the same thing.
Yep.
Now, having not played it,
Yes, same.
this feels really overly complicated for a game.
Yes. Affiliation, distinction, power set, specialty, and then like stunt, resource, stress, plot point. 8 dice, and they can all be a D6, they can all be a D8, they can all be a D10. That's a lot of dice you have to bring to the table.
Yeah, I mean, like the physical quantity of dice, but at the end of the day, you're only picking 3 out of them. Like there's, as far as from what I understand, there isn't a situation where you're picking more than that. And I mean, and if there is, it's probably going to be like 4.
1, yeah. You can add with a plot point, that's one of the plot point things.
The barrier for me at least, because I remember reading this with Winters when he originally was talking about playing this game a couple years ago. Like I had read the book and I was just like, okay, I understand how to play and I get it, but I don't understand why you would want to. And I think that like the overcomplication of this game and how like how you're rolling so many dice, but you're only choosing a handful of them, and then you're choosing another dice, and that dice is actually a separate dice pool for your enemy's stress, and blah, 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 so on and so forth, and like how your stress increases, and it's not like a flat HP number. Like, there's a lot of new mechanics to this that are really complicated, and it's not just like one complicated mechanic to a simplified game. This game isn't the easiest, isn't the best game, and I think that there are a lot better ways to convert current games to using Marvel heroes in them, or I think there's really simple ways of using just like simple percentile games that uses D10s to make a Marvel superhero game. I don't know. I'm not a game creator.
Neither of us have played it. That's the bottom line, is that neither of us have really played it. These are impressions based on us reading the book. I think a lot of things are more intimidating before you've done them, right? I think both of our learning styles are more do rather than read or listen. If you want to hear us talk about what we think of it after we have a few sessions under our belts, let us know down in the comments. We'll gladly do that follow-up video for you. Also, if you want to watch us experience it for the very first time, head over to twitch.tv/QueueTimes and watch us play the sessions with our friends.
Yeah, Wednesday, 6:30 p.m. PST.
Yeah.
Before you go over to Twitch, make sure to hit the like button if you like this video. Make sure to hit the subscribe button if you're not already, and hit the bell icon so you can get notifications for all of our future content. You can also go over to Twitter and talk to us there. You can talk to me there at IndigoQT.
You straight up didn't take a breath that whole time. You can talk to me on Twitter at CrewQT, or you can talk to both of us at the same time at the social media links down here. We've been GameGorgon. We will see you guys next time on Twitch. Bye.